Perfect. So, welcome everybody. We're talking about upsells today. The title is Protect Your Margins, Wield the Power of Upselling in Uncertain Times. That already gives you a clue as to why we're talking about upsells today. Upsells are nothing new, they are not a new concept, but it does seem like they are very relevant right now, considering the challenges hosts and managers like you are facing at this moment, which is what? Thinning margins. There doesn't seem to be any dearth of demand in the travel industry in general, and specifically for short-term rentals. We know that already, but what that has meant is this is no longer a secret either. Everybody else knows that there is demand for short-term rentals, and everybody wants a piece of the pie, which means that there's more supply flooding many markets. So although there are bookings, supply is outpacing demand in a lot of these markets, and you may be experiencing that yourself in your market. Let me know if that's the case. And that's just one end of the struggle, obviously. Additionally, we are experiencing inflation globally everywhere. Prices are going up for everybody. And the same stands true for short-term rental owners and managers. Your expenses are going up. So while you do have a certain set amount of revenues, they are being eaten into by these rising expenses. So one of the solutions, of course, would be to find you more listings to add to your portfolio, expand in that way, which is great. I'm sure you still do want to do that very much. You want to expand your portfolio, you want to grow as a company, and you obviously want more guests, more bookings, yes. But both of these tactics are very time consuming and very resource heavy as well, as you know, as owners and managers. So what we wanted to do was highlight a tactic you can use without doubling your workload or spending so much more time or putting in many additional resources in. And the idea is to help you look at your existing resources and perhaps recontextualize them as things you can upsell and generate revenue from. So that's just a very brief overview of why we're doing what we're doing today. Like I mentioned, I'm Yuvika Wahi. I work for Rental Scale Up. We are a short-term rental industry news and analysis website. We have a free weekly newsletter that you can subscribe to get industry news right in your inbox. Today, I'm joined by speakers from Enso Connect, Guest View Guide, and Mount, and I'm a special fourth speaker as well. So I will let them introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Francois, who is the CEO and co-founder of Enso. Francois, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
100%. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the call today. So my name is Francois. I'm one of the co-founders of Enso, and we are a guest experience platform for the vacation rental industry. What that means, we plug into your property management system. We connect, as per the name, with a lot of the tools, including companies like Mount, and help you digitize and monetize every step of the guest journey. That's a little bit about us.
Thank you, Francois. Next on the panel is Jennifer Wilson. She's the business development manager at Guest View Guide. I think we have some of your customers here today tuning in as well.
Yes,
so why don't you tell us about yourself, Jennifer?
Sure. Thank you so much again for allowing us the opportunity to participate today. My name is Jennifer Wilson. I am with Guest View Guide. We have a digital concierge display that hangs right up on the wall for vacation rental properties, basically allowing your guests a really easy way to have that communication, get some additional information about the property, the location, and just personalize that experience for the guests.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next on the schedule is Madison Rifkin. She's the founder and CEO of Mount. Madison, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Madison Rifkin. You can also call me Maddie. I am the CEO and founder of Mount. And basically what we do is we're building a massive worldwide marketplace that basically takes every hidden gem, local experience, operator, business. We bring them online, so they're no longer pen and paper. And we basically enable you as a host or a property manager to offer these amazing experiences to your guests. So that they have more than just a place to stay. They truly are coming to your property for that once in a lifetime trip, but every time they travel. So that's what we're in the business of doing.
Thank you, Madison. And I'm really excited to also introduce our special guest, Julia Rossi, who is the short-term rental owner and manager. The reason I say special is because every time we have industry experts chime in and share their insights, every time we organize these conferences, but this is the first time we have one of you joining us and sharing their firsthand on-ground experience. And I think it's very vital we have this perspective, and we intend to do this every time we organize a conference here on out. So thank you, Julia, for joining us. And why don't you please introduce yourself first?
Hi, everybody. As Yuvika mentioned, I am a short-term rental owner and am very, very hands-on from a marketing and operations standpoint. I have been 20 years sales and marketing, mostly in the tech space, and perhaps some of you guys can relate to this. While doing that, also did the side hustle and built a business, actually invented a product, brought that to market, and sold that through a number of major retailers that landed me on season 6 of Shark Tank. And all the while, definitely am a creative and had needed some downtime. So in my downtime would do a lot of design, interiors, creative work. That was like, that's how I would recharge and refresh. And so when I had an exit from that business, I ended up looking at diversifying our retirement a little bit more, got back into rentals. We had some long-term rentals in the past that we had sold off, but got into the short-term rental business, and then combined all of my passions, sales, marketing, and then this product experience to create a shoppable short-term rental experience in Waco, Texas. So the property is Mackenzie Corner, and we also have some other design portfolio properties, but Mackenzie Corner is what I'm going to be talking about today, and yeah, how we use some of the products and services that we're representing here. So it's great to meet y'all.
Thank you, Julia. Thanks everybody for introducing yourselves. I also want to let everybody know who's attending today that our partners have generously extended their special offers for you. For example, Enso Connect, if you subscribe to Enso Connect until October 31st, you can get free Enso AI as a part of the package. Also, if you subscribe to Guest View Guide, you can get free shipping on your Guest View Guide digital guidebook LED touchscreen. You don't have to pay shipping fees. And Mount has also extended a free experience consultation. Basically, one of their professionals can dive deep into your portfolio and help you figure out the experiences you can offer as upsells. So all these 3 offers are for the attendees today. I will be sharing the details of how you can redeem these offers in my email tomorrow, because this event is being recorded. So when I send you the recording, I will also send you the redemption steps. So you might have noticed a pattern here. Everybody joining us today on the panel has intensive expertise in the matter of upsells, and that's obviously by design. Either it's from the perspective of designing these upsells or thinking of which upsells to offer for their own short-term rental, for example. So without further ado, let's dive in. Ask the first question, and obviously anybody feel free to take the first question, of course. What I want to get started with is something actionable, and maybe we can talk about what are some examples of existing services hosts and managers can monetize and upsell. Because like I said, the idea today is to not have to not make hosts and managers come up with new resources, invest new resources, but instead monetize what they already have. We think that. So who would like to go first?
I'm happy to jump in real quick.
Sure.
I guess to start, I want to get people excited about what upsells mean and look at sort of the data behind what you can capitalize on. And I have some notes here, so if I'm staring at this, it's because I'm still paying attention. I'm just looking at the numbers. So if you take into account that the rental is 25% of a traveler's budget, and that the total amount that the guests pay, the gross booking volume is $2,000 there for the rental, their overall budget, and this is of course, back of the napkin kind of math, is about $6,700. You take out the OTA commission, $300. You take out the revenue that you share with the property owner, you take out $1,700, and you end up with, let's say, gross margins of 25%, roughly $500. assuming a 30% rev share with the owner. Basically, if you can capitalize on 5% of that guest's overall budget, you're making an extra $285 per reservation. So that's just to put things in perspective of where that extra cash can come from and how you can increase your revenue per guest, if that makes sense.
I love it.
I can chime in too as well, because I think Francois is definitely onto something. But when it comes to just looking at what to upsell and what to do, I always advise that you should really be looking at your guest avatar. Like, who have you designed this property for and why are they coming? And I always ask the question, like, is your guest asking you? Like, what should I be doing? Where should I be going? They're going to tell you what they want to buy. And I mean, the not so secret of the industry is travelers are totally buying all of this stuff. 83% of travelers will go out and purchase stuff when they're traveling pretty much every day. And I want to say, don't quote me on this because it's not as accurate as it used to be, but it's $80 to $100, I think, on average, a traveler is spending every single day just on things they're buying to enhance their trip. So if you're not tapping into that, you definitely should be, because it's a lot of money being left on the table.
Agreed. I can give some just very specific examples of things that we're doing at McKinsey Corner. One of the pillars of our business is making sure that it feels very hyper local. And so experiences are a part of our business. I noticed that someone was in the Dallas area. If you're calling in from like the Central Texas area, look up Dreamy Picnics. So one of the things that we do is when someone is checking, like purchasing the rental, we have some add-on options around experiences that are hyper local. So we have worked to build relationships in the Waco community. And it's kind of twofold. Of course, it helps us with upsells, but also the community partners that we're partnering with are also promoting our property, which is fantastic. So we're getting like that social buzz angle as well. But in this particular case, like we went out and found a picnic company. They come on site and set up like a surprise picnic. And it's themed, it's an exclusive theme to McKinsey Corner. And so it's one of those things where when they're, purchasing the rental, it's a difference maker, and it's an add-on and something that's very experiential. So that's one particular thing that we've done. There's a slew of other, there's Waco tours, Baylor's in the area for us, Baylor University. So there are opportunities to work with a lot of those agencies as well. And then just thinking a little more outside of the experience or outside of the box. I mentioned kind of in the intro that design is kind of one of my creative outlets. Well, we fully designed McKinsey Corner to be shoppable. So there are moments like when you're building out your short-term rental, you're selecting items. And so one of the creative ways that we've been able to monetize and essentially upsell our property even outside of the actual true rental is by capitalizing on the stuff in the property. So we've designed it, it's affectionately known as the most inspiring and comfortable stay in Waco, Texas. And it's inspiring because of the artwork, the wallpaper, the furnishings, and the feedback we get from guests is, if I was adventurous, I would want my house to be decorated this way. Oh my gosh, where did you get those sheets from? We've probably all heard that from a guest so many times. Well, there are programs out there that you can certainly use to help monetize and capitalize on commissions from selling those products in a very native way. So it can't feel over the top. And the way that we do that is actually using Guest View Guide. It's a tablet that sits right on the wall when you walk in the door. It's kind of that one-stop shop for the guest to go, so that they know, okay, if I need to find something, a recommendation for I want to do that add-on for the picnic and I didn't buy it right away, I can go back to that Guest View Guide and I can see that it's available and where to contact for that. But there's a QR code. So we have a slide that has a QR code that essentially allows that guest to scan the QR code, and then it presents themselves with all of the curated goods from our home that they can then, go to our website and actually purchase. And then a lot of these items, we have relationships with the brands, but a lot of them are also on vendors like Amazon. And you can register very simply for an affiliate link with Amazon. Someone purchases a mattress topper, it's $5 commission to you. So it's just a way, thinking outside of the box, to really creatively monetize what you're already putting into the house. Your experience is driving them to want to purchase that product without them even realizing it, without hitting them over the head with it. So you might as well, capitalize that and earn a commission off of that. So just a couple of ways that we think about that and do that at McKinsey Corner. I can share a number of other ideas, but.
That's such a great idea. There's some really great ideas here. Thank you, Julia, and thank you, Francois and Madison as well. Again, I know Heather brings up the point in chat that it only works if you own the home. And how do you do this for those who are managing homes for second home owners? So, of course, according to what Julia has been able to do is to think of this at the time of the build. But if you're managing a home, you're still replenishing the furnishings. You're still replenishing the amenities, the groceries, etc. And instead of simply going out and purchasing these amenities, you should take a moment to think about if the vendor that you're purchasing this from has perhaps an affiliate deal, which is the quickest way for you to generate some revenue, where you're not actually designing with this in mind, but these are amenities you're going to buy anyway. You're just making sure that you're also making some money every time you're recharging, or if every time someone wants to buy one of these things, it's worth looking into. But of course, there's a lot of existing essential services that are kind of now add-ons, which you can upsell as well. For example, we were talking about this. I remember, Jennifer, you mentioned about early check-ins or late checkouts, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would definitely think of anything that you already have in your property or people that you're already working with. So, a late checkout, for instance, and you can monetize that however you would like. With Guest View Guide, we also have ways that, like, if you have back-to-back reservations, you can disable it to make it easy operationally for your staff if you can't accommodate something like that. But even working, as Julia mentioned, some of the merchants, you could work with a local, if you're at the beach, you can have a fishing company or fishing excursions or surf company or things like that. Or we're in Orlando, so ticket companies and selling tickets, to attractions and things like that. So I think it's really important just tapping into what's available in your market, but also things like, for instance, we have a customer that works with artists and features local artwork on the display and has links. So if people wanted to purchase their artwork, they could do that. Or if somebody wanted to have a chef come in and do, some kind of catered event, if you have a family reunion or a bachelorette party or something like that. So there's endless opportunities to, really upsell and come up with ideas. It's really just kind of thinking of, what you have around you and what makes sense and what makes you stand out. And I mean, as Julia mentioned, the picnic idea, I would absolutely do that. I mean, I think it's so fun and so unique. So I think just coming up with those ideas, really allows you to stand out as a property manager, but it also gives your guests a really unique experience, because I mean, who would have thought that you could go to a property in Waco and have a picnic? I would never have thought of that. So tapping into your local expertise, and that's what guests really like and want. I want to go somewhere and have somebody tell me, go to this local restaurant, or go to these different experiences around here. So tapping into your local expertise really gives you the credibility for your guests.
Yeah, I think one thing along those lines too, Jennifer, you brought up a good point, is, guests do think that you're a local, even if you're not. It's just, that's how Airbnb has positioned themselves, and that's kind of how this host is viewed. And so I think it's worth noting that setting up local partnerships, getting contracts together, making sure you get your affiliate revenue, like, that is not an easy task. That might be a business in and of itself, but it is what your guests are buying. So I would advise to work smarter and not harder, and find a company that can essentially take on the business relationship of partnering with all these local businesses, do the contract work, and let you become an affiliate essentially at that point. So you look like the hero because you're providing all these amazing local recommendations, these local experiences, these tickets. They're all purchasable, they're all bookable, but you did not have to do any of the work of going on foot to the store to build that relationship and do all that hard work. So I would just put that out there, in that if you want to take on that strategy, just find a partner to help.
Yeah, I love that. It does take to do it like yourself, takes time and energy and effort. You know, having someone like Madison's company supporting that is huge. Like for us, for example, we work with a local property management company. They're the largest like family-owned property management company in terms of doors in Waco. So they have like that group, you know, so that experience. So they can go and negotiate as a group with some of these vendors, but then can also get even more hyper local for like our particular property that's maybe a little bit different, where we want to offer a specific package, but they can do that like group negotiation with like one company, which is fantastic on our behalf. And then using like a guest view guide has been game changing for us because it can be set up for a number of properties, but then as someone who's very hands-on in the process and just the marketing approach, you know, I can work with my property management group and say, okay, but for our property, I'd like to tweak this, or this, and here's our QR code and here's our link. So it's been phenomenal that operationally it's been able to support and accommodate kind of the mass setup of recommendations, but then also drill it down to like a very specific property like ours, which is great.
Thank you. And I think that answers the question also about how we can sort of go about thinking through what to upsell, how before you can begin to offer an upsell, you have to know what does it take for a service to become an upsell, how it qualifies to be one, and how we can make revenue off of it. And I think these are some really good points you've mentioned in terms of considering your location, and working with vendors, prioritizing working with vendors. So you don't have to take on a lot firsthand. Is there anything you'd like to add, specifically any of you, to the question as to how hosts and managers can think through possible upsells? Because obviously the two have very different journeys, when you are an owner and when you are a manager. So anything that you have to add in this context?
I think it might tie a bit with the next question, if anything, but and this goes towards a comment that Heather was making around, what happens if you're the owner versus, you're managing properties. And I think you also have to think through the segmentation of, you're an owner managing a few properties, you're a property manager managing a few dozen properties, or you're an enterprise company managing hundreds of properties, right? And the challenges that you face as a company in those three segments are going to be very different. If you're managing dozens, if not hundreds of properties, you're facing operational issues every day that you have to fix. And the idea of doing upsells is like, I don't have time right now. I don't have time. At which point you want to start thinking about what are some easy wins that are actually part of your operations either way. Things like early check-in, late checkout, mid-stay cleaning, gap nights, things that flow within the operations that aren't necessarily the add-on experiences. And I think this ties as well with those of you who might be struggling to figure out who your audience is, or targeting an audience that isn't vacation. I know I saw a comment somewhere saying, you target more digital nomads. This was someone, Jenny Tacole, if I'm pronouncing your name well. These are some easy wins that you can do that aren't really relevant to whether it's vacation or, if it's military folks, if it's digital nomads. It's something that kind of makes it available for all travelers, where you don't have to go into that segmentation. Positioning those types of upsells in your operations is also extremely important, so that you don't conflict with offering a mid-stay cleaning when your cleaning team isn't available, or offering an early check-in when the property isn't really available because there's a previous guest there, and now you have conflicting semi-double bookings, if you will. So just feeding those operational focused upsells to start are an easy win. And what we've seen on our end is 1 in 3 guests will purchase one of those 4 items. And that's just, if you pick obviously the right tools, we have a solution, but we're not here to sell you. You can do it manually as well, just to kind of test it out and see. This is where you'll see the power of upsells, and then you're going to get excited on all the other types of upsells that you can offer that are really catered to your guests.
Thank you for that, Francois. I do think this kind of leads into another question, and one that's come up because we're also on the side, we're running polls, we're asking attendees questions about the upsells they're already running, their challenges, etc. So the question that I asked was, what's your biggest challenge in implementing upselling strategies? And the winner, so to say, was convincing guests to opt for upsells. And this is something that has come up in the chat here in questions as well. Because fine, there are things that there are existing services that you can position as upsells and make that revenue, or create new services and try to generate revenue through those. But how do you avoid being pushy and intrusive, and so that the guest doesn't feel like they are paying for services that ought to be free, for example?
I can start with this one if you guys don't mind, because I found it very interesting. We're big on TikTok just as a company, and we had a post go viral or a video go viral, and it got such diverse opinions. We had travelers, we had hosts commenting, and it was all because I said the phrase, let's capitalize on our guest, meaning you should be upselling, and travelers took that the very wrong way. But it was a fantastic way to get massive market research. I mean, we had over 500,000 people commenting and viewing on this video. And I think for the travelers, what it really comes down to is the way you position this. And if you're truly trying to do an upsell, let's say actually a great example is you put some bikes on your property, and you put the pictures in your listing, and that's it. And you don't tell your guests you're going to charge for it. And then they get to your property and realize, oh, this is an extra $10 if I want to use these bikes. In their mind, when they saw your listing, they thought that was included, and that's why they were booking your property. So what we learned is it all comes down to setting the mindset of your guest. Like if you are going to upsell something, golf cart is a great example. We have people doing this. They put it in their listing, but they put that, hey, this is an additional $90 a day, or however much you're going to charge for it. That way in the listing, your guest knows even before they book that this is going to be an additional upsell. That's a good way to not nickel and dime. And then I do think you just have to be really sensitive, because the guest these days is just in the mindset of feeling nickel and dimes. They don't like the service fees. They don't like the cleaning fees. They're just kind of in that mindset. And so just making sure that you're positioning yourself as a local, that is the power you have, in that guests, travelers, nomadic travelers, whoever they are, they want local recommendations, to the point where travelers will go to a bar, sit there and talk to the locals to get the recommendations. So if you can really position yourself that way, they're going to take your recommendations very seriously and want to book, and actually feel not nickel and dimes, but like they're getting so much more value from you and your property than just if you had just kind of been like, hey, here's my Viator link. That's all I got for you. Like that is not what they want.
100%.
Yeah.
I can add to that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Julian. Okay. It's also part of the process, right? Like, what is your experience, or what is your process, your guest journey, if you will? And I see a lot of questions or comments around, how do I overcome the guest sentiment of like, you're nickel and diming me. And in this case, when it comes to upsells, you don't want to be penny wise and dollar foolish, because at the end of the day, the core revenue is from the rental itself. So when you think about your positioning, and I'm not going to talk too much about the messaging piece, I'm more going to talk about what are the steps of your guest journey. If you are taking the guest through, let's say, a verification process, and then a safety deposit process, and then a check-in process, and then a checkup process, and so on, there's different steps along the way where you can provide optionality. And optionality is really what guests want. It's not that when they ask for, luggage storage, or when they ask for an early check-in, and you then comment back, hey, here is the cost of this, they feel like, wait, you're cheap, you're being cheap. Like, why don't you just offer this for free? Like, I paid all this money to stay, etc. Whereas if you offer this service before they even ask for it, and it's there in front of them throughout that process, then there is no more of that sentiment. It's kind of like we've already packaged what the best experience is for our travelers, whether it's the early check-in, whether it's the bike rentals, whether it's the luggage storage. It's all available in one single place, whether it's our solution with the boarding pass, whether it's guest view guides with their tablets, whether it's Mount, and there's dozens of solutions out there. You can also do this yourself through your website, or as Maddie mentioned, through your the content of your listing, but you're being proactive about it. You're not waiting for the guest to ask you for a service and then telling them, hey, it's going to cost you this. you actually have all of these services available, and they can kind of pick and choose what makes sense. And then when it comes to the strategies to remove sort of the sentiment of, oh, I have to pay more money, there's different pricing strategies. And I'm sure you guys know this around the actual revenue management side of things, but there's pricing strategies that you can put in place. We've seen certain things around offering early check-in for free for the first 30 to 45 minutes, if not an hour from your check-in time. So for example, if it's 4 p.m. check-in, you offer a free 3 p.m. check-in. Now, in reality, you're totally fine getting guests to check in at 3 because your properties are clean at like 12 or 1. But you're going to upsell a bit more if it's an early check-in at 1 or 2. And what this gives is this idea of optionality again to the guests. They get to choose between a free early check-in for a specific amount of time or a paid one. And they start to recognize as well why there's a cost associated to it. So again, I go really on when to position the upsells, simplify your process. Think about it from the, not just the, okay, I'm going to set up upsells and start selling things to my client, but let me position certain things along that guest journey at the relevant steps and provide, again, sorry for repeating the word, but optionality. I think that's the part of the key here.
Thank you, Francois. I think that's a very useful insight, because if you are being, I think, preemptively answering their questions and anticipating their needs is generally good guest experience practice anyway, but it also allows them, you're kind of setting boundaries right away without it seeming like you're trying to rip them off. It's just you're laying down, this is how your process is, and you've thought of everything that they might need along their stay, and you made sure to make it available for them at no extra effort on their part. Thank you for that. I think, Julia, you had something to add to this?
I think we should leave it at Francois. That was good.
No, please.
Perfect. Okay, no problem. Well, I do have another question for all of you, because this kind of linked to what we were just talking about. How do we upsell without being pushy and feeling like we're nickel and diming our guests? What are some other, I feel like this is one of the potential challenges you might face in offering upsells, of course, but what are some other challenges or pitfalls that managers and hosts should watch out for when they are beginning to implement upselling in whatever way, whether it's upselling their existing services or introducing new experiences and more?
I think for us, it has to just feel really genuine. So much like Madison was talking about TikTok, we really leverage like the social channels, and talk very genuinely about the services. And in fact, if I'm going to recommend taking a family to the Cameron Park Zoo in Waco, I'm going to take my kids there, and I'm going to make sure that it's a phenomenal experience. One of the other things we do is UGC, user generated content. We create a lot of content, which is super important because that helps those images and those videos, they help connect the dots between the experience and the guest. And so if I'm showing my kids having a great time at at the zoo in Waco, and then I can use socials and promote pictures on my feed and add that into a newsletter ahead of time. And, it's really helping connect the dots, but it's also very, very genuine. One of the questions we also get often is like, how do you sell these products in your property? How do you make this shoppable so it doesn't feel like, they're walking into a store and someone like a sales rep is like following them around going, hey, you want to buy that couch? Ultimately, it has to be through really genuine design. There's a term in the marketing world called native advertising, and it's really means like the advertising is a part of the environment. So it's through great design that you can get someone excited about a couch or wallpaper, and they want to go to that guest view guide and click the QR code and go, I want to know more about where I can find this for my own space. So I would really encourage all of us to think about the design of the space, not putting QR codes and stickers on everything for them to purchase, but just making the environment so inspiring that they go, whoa, I want to take a piece of this experience staying at McKinsey Corner home with me. How do I do that? Well, here you go, right? It's right there, the Mount Concierge. Or I loved that picnic. I want to tell all my friends about it. Well, they're now going to be sharing pictures and content of that experience genuinely on their socials. And now their friends are going to want to come and stay in Waco, and they realize Waco's more than Magnolia. Oh my gosh, right? So that's just one example, but I think to wrap it all up, it's got to feel very genuine in terms of how you talk about some of these experiences. And it does take a little bit of thought and ingenuity around how to set that up. But once you get the hang of it, it's really natural. So.
Thank you, Julia. But what about people who are managing more than 1 or 2 properties, who are doing this at scale, and they have to kind of think through more the process, I guess. What would this look like for them? Because this is a challenge for them, I guess, setting up upsells in a way that it's not more hours and hours of organizing things. And so what can medium, large property managers do? Anybody who has more than a couple of properties, for example.
I could happily jump on that. I mean, we focus on large operators, and it goes back to what I was mentioning around that guest journey. And I'll kind of give you guys an example. And I don't want to be biased on the context of Enzo, so I'm going to use sort of all the technology companies that are out there as part of the sort of process. But if you look at, generally speaking, when you have like 40, 50, 150 properties that you manage, your first step is you send that booking confirmation message. The guest books, they get a message with booking confirmation. Usually what will happen next is a verification process. You're using tools like Stubrog, AutoHost, whatever system that are out there. Maybe you're doing it manually, whatever that process is. But once they've gotten to that stage, there's this gap where there's no communication necessarily. We're waiting until the check-in time. Some cases you might send a little message just to get them excited ahead of their stay. There's really a gap there. The difference between a hotel and a vacation rental is that a vacation rental guest asks a bunch of questions at that stage because they're getting excited about their stay. Hotels is kind of like, I'll show up, I'll get to the front desk, I'll get my key and I'll figure it out. Well, this is an opportunity for you to start presenting those kinds of offers. So instead of just getting them excited from a messaging perspective, presenting this, whether you're using a guidebook, whether you're using our boarding pass solution, whether you're using Guest View Guides, Mount, any of the platforms that are out there that can offer this type of upsell system, or even if you want to try it out without any tech, in your messaging, being like, by the way, just wanted to let you know, we offer these kinds of service. Just let us know if this is something that you're interested in. So again, it goes back to that idea of being proactive. The next step after that is going to be the check-in process. Now, there's a little cool data point that I saw that I was really excited about. Obviously a bit biased. So part of our system is this thing called boarding pass, where you have a check-in button. And what we had realized was when the guests would click the check-in button and it was too early, we would kind of just be like, it's too early, right? And if you factor that in, not from a app perspective or what Enzo does, but in your messaging where a guest asks, when am I getting the check-in instructions? Well, you weren't proactive enough, that means, because they're asking you, they don't know, and they're asking you these questions. They're hesitant as to whether or not they're going to be able to successfully check in. So by just putting a little pop-up that said, are you interested in purchasing an early check-in, which I know sounds really cheeky. Well, people just kind of feel like, it's part of the process. Sure, I'll do it. No problem. So whether it's in your messaging, whether it's in your guidebooks, whether it's in your boarding pass, whether it's in whatever system you're using, again, it goes back to the idea, of just knowing what the guest wants before the guest even knows what they want. This is what hotel concierge and like the luxury space do so phenomenally well. And that's what defines luxury, quite frankly. And so how to be proactive on that is all about knowing who your guests are, collecting the right information so that you can segment the guests. So if it's a family trip, and of course, doing that at scale when you're a large property manager is much more difficult because you can't ask the question and remember, Bob who's staying is staying for these reasons because you have 1,000 Bobs staying in the next couple of months. So being able to collect that information using some sort of system and then creating filters, just segmenting, understanding what are the guests that are coming to my property, and then creating what I like to call workflows. So if it's a guest that is like this and that fits this avatar, we're going to bring them through this kind of workflow. If it's a guest that goes in this direction, we're going to send them in a different direction. Sorry, I hope this is answers the question. I don't want to take too much of the time here, but I'm sure Jennifer, you probably have a lot to add on this part.
Yeah. So I mean, I think to add on to that, so understanding who your customers are, understanding who's coming into your property. If you know that, I mean, I'm in the Orlando market. Everybody's coming here. Most everybody is coming here for the parks. They're coming to Disney. They're going to, wherever. And then you have some people that don't want to do that. So, having information at their fingertips to, a lot of times people are always asking me, like, I'm coming to Orlando, but I'm not going to the parks. What is there to do? And having that information there for them and personalizing that information and giving them that experience that you can provide to them. They're looking to you as the expert in the area. So, knowing what is out there at your fingertips. But I think Francois also, you mentioned, people don't really know what they want to buy. Like, you put that idea in their head. And I know that somebody asked a question of like, well, how can we possibly have people purchase late checkouts, for instance, if that's something that we've always offered for free? I think if you put that in someone's head, I mean, there are so many times when I'm going somewhere and I just need, another hour or two, just to have that additional time, before I check out. And at a hotel, you're calling and you're asking, can I get another hour? And then, most of the time they're like, no, you can't. And then, but you will be surprised at what people purchase. I think especially too, when people are on vacation, they tend to be a little bit more focused on the experience, and they don't really necessarily mind spending extra money if they can get something completely that different experience. I mean, my family and I went to Europe over the summer, and believe me, we, of course, you always have a budget in mind when you're going somewhere, and then of course things change, and then you end up doing things that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate doing. It's all about the experience. So I think if you present it to your customer, to your guests in a way that's not intrusive, and showing them like, here are some things that you can do, you'd be surprised at how many people will end up clicking and purchasing on those different experiences.
And to add to that, just briefly, if you're out of ideas, in the case of like you're not sure yet who your travelers are, you're not yet sure what kind of experiences you can do. I had a call after launching Enzo AI, for a bit of noise in the background, with one of our clients to see like how they were using it and so on. And one of the things that they had done, which I thought was so brilliant, they copy pasted all of their reviews from Airbnb or one of the OTAs, put it in ChatGPT, and basically ask ChatGPT, what kind of upsells should I offer? And this sounds so basic, but what it's looking at is all the positive reviews, the things that people were excited about, or the things that people weren't happy about, and then spits out a bunch of really good ideas. Like, people were like, oh my God, I had such a great time at this museum, or I had such a great time at this restaurant. And you see three patterns, three people saying they love the restaurant downstairs. And so then you go broker a deal with the restaurant downstairs, and you tell them, look, pay me $500 a month, and I have all these guests, and I'm going to tell them about your restaurant. And you'd be shocked how some restaurants are like, yeah, that's free marketing, I'm down. And I know Guest You Guys does a phenomenal job of that sort of affiliate marketing with local businesses, Mount as well, of course. So there's different strategies or plays that you can do to understand where you're currently positioned without actually having to do much work. And then if you're kind of hesitant on like, oh, but I don't really know if my guests are going to agree with this, try it out. A/B testing, like that is the easiest way. Try it out and see for yourself, right? And then if you see the positives of it, you're going to just be an upselling pro after that.
Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
To add on to that, we've used that strategy actually, Francois, and slightly tweaked in the sense of, the challenge for us is outside of Magnolia, like how do we get people to stay longer, right? Because there's so many experiences in Waco just outside of that. So it's use ChatGPT to determine what are people searching, what are they doing in Waco outside of Magnolia, and then that becomes those experiences. That becomes the place where we started looking at the restaurants, the food scene, like it's a big foodie scene. Right. And that's where we started to your point, to broker some of those conversations. And then I'll also mention, like, just thinking a little bit more creatively, it is shocking how open other companies are to working with you, like once you have those initial conversations. And what we use, one of the things we're actually just rolling out with Guest View Guide is there is like when the tablet on the wall is not being used, it cycles through images, right? So I can say like, here's our family, right? Welcome, thank you so much for staying. That's one slide. You know, shop McKinsey Corner, that's that QR code. Well, in between those slides, you can put in advertisements for specific companies, right? And so we can say to them, we're bringing you additional value. Not only do we have so many thousands of guests through, you know, the property every year, right? But we can now capture the attention of, you know, everybody that's in that room, not just the person that books, but everybody that's in that space using this tablet, and they're seeing these promotions, right? And it's just a beautiful picture of like an excursion or like the picnic, for example. So I can go back to that picnic company and say, I'm happy to advertise for you. You can charge them, right? Or you can choose not to and just use that as a tactic to help bond the two of you into developing this experience together. But that's real estate, if you will, for like promotional and advertising content. The other thing that we leverage it for, and this can be at scale. So think of like property management at scale. You can do these advertisements across multiple tablets if you're managing, you know, 50 doors in one geolocation, right? So you can do that at scale as well. But also just-in-time communication. So say there is a Baylor welcome home, you know, Baylor Bears event, or there's a concert that weekend, or we want to promote a specific brewery, as Madison mentioned, or a vendor. There's an announcement specifically that you can use that will pop up a specific announcement saying, hey, not sure if you saw that there's this event happening this weekend. Here's where you can find exclusive rates on tickets, or call Joe, right? Or whatever that is, but you can use just-in-time communication to capture that guest right then and there. So there's a number of ways that we use this tablet beyond just, you know, the traditional, I would say, format. We're just trying to think creatively about it, and it's pretty cool. It's working.
I think to add to that, one thing that every single property manager and owner wants is rebooking. And what we have is, you know, asking guests while they're in the property, while they're having that really great experience, hey, have you thought about your next vacation? Rebook with us directly and give them some kind of offer, save 10% on your next visit. Or if you have properties in different locations, so say for instance, you're in Waco, Texas, and maybe you're at a family reunion and you're trying to think of places to stay next year and someone throws out, you know, the beach. You can have your properties advertised as well. So showcasing your brand, advertising the other properties within your portfolio, and capturing that revenue for rebooking when they are in your property. Because that is, they're captivated at that point. So getting that rebook, you know, right then and there when they're at your property is another opportunity for you to get some additional upsell without it being in your face as well.
I think rebooking is such a critical aspect of upselling, and it's already right there. And I think this is one of the tactics that sort of larger property managers would find easier to adopt. It also makes more sense for them. This is definitely one thing that you can sort of build into your existing process, and you can think about how it fits into your existing process. Do you want to have physical visual aids that I kind of promote your other properties, or do you have a guidebook, or do you just want to do you have an app or a mobile website that you ask your guests to use, or a flyer? Whatever is the media of your choice, you don't have to go outside of that. You don't have to venture outside of that. You can use your existing media, but make sure it includes all of this information of things you could be upselling, of experiences you could be upselling. And of course, great way to get rebookings as well. One of the questions that we have in the Q&A is, what is the ideal point during the guest journey, number of days after booking? So a specific question. We've already broadly covered this, I think. Francois, you've gone into this. What's the ideal point during the guest journey, number of days after booking, to offer these upsells to a guest?
I can take this one. We have actually a ton of data on this. But basically what we have seen is that it's not ideal to hit your guest with a lot of these upsells if you're talking more about the experiences, maybe the mid-stay clean even too, while they're checking in, because they're too flustered. You know, they need to get the code to the door, probably the alarm if you have one. Like, it's just a very stressful process, even though we're trying to make it not. So we see a lot of bookings happen once your guest has been settled in. They decide who's staying in what rooms, like that, you know, then they're comfortable in your place. And now they're thinking, all right, let's plan. We have tomorrow, we have the next day. They also know the weather at that point too. So if it's going to be a rainy day tomorrow, they're going to pick an experience that's inside. Like, they just have a lot more information now than they would have previous. So we always recommend, and what we see is a lot of bookings happening either the night they arrive or the next morning, right? Kind of when they're in that decision-making process of what they should be doing.
That makes a lot of sense. Francois, I think you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry. I was going to add to Maddie's point, other than obviously the services like early check-in, these obviously can't be sold after they've checked in. But when it comes to like, don't try to upsell at the booking confirmation level, because that's actually when they've spent the most money and they're already kind of like, okay, I've dumped all my cash into renting this place and this vacation. So it's not necessarily the best time to upsell new experiences. It's going to also be in that window. If you have enough time, so you have to look at your length of stay and you have to look at your booking windows. So if you're booking 6 months out for stay in 6 months, then you've got a lot of room in the middle to start a dialogue around the upsells. If it's a last minute reservation, as per Maddie's point, no point in trying to upsell too much before they even check in, because they're coming in, they're flustered, they have so many things to do, they have to check in, so that, you know, in-stay segment is going to work better. But again, it goes back to A/B testing. Like, your properties, what I love about the vacation rental industry is every property is different, every guest is different, every owner is different, every location is different. So it's going to depend enormously on what kind of business, brand, and target audience you're focused on.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Julia, please go ahead.
One other thing to add is, if you do have the opportunity to upsell after the fact, like the shoppable home does give you an opportunity to reach out to them after the fact and still capture, you know, commissions, if you will, and revenue, and remarket to your guests. Every market is very different. We actually, Heather, I saw your, or Heliano, I saw your note. We do have a good amount of rebookings in our space, but I think it's just micro environments, you know, everywhere. But one of the ways that we stay connected is through social media, reminding them of new things, like making announcements like, hey, we now have this partnership with XYZ. And then again, it's that QR code. It drives them actually to our website. Like, in our property management relationship, we have like a very open relationship, in the sense of, if we're capturing people through that QR code, happy to share those people with our property management group. So they're building their subscription list, and then they're happy to share with us, and we're building our subscription list, and we're kind of connecting on the newsletter aspect. But the shoppable home, the new like events in the area, the new relationships, the new experiences, those are all announcement worthy things that we can send in a newsletter follow-up, and then drive them back to rebook, drive them back to purchase something. And so, and it's value add, you know, they want to click into it because it's interesting. And if you have any kind of college in the area, families are coming back to that college to visit their students all the time. So I think that's another thing to think about too, is how can you leverage that for, you know, some content to share back.
I think it all, like you mentioned, Julia, it all goes back to knowing your market. As owners, as hosts, as managers, you already know who your guests are and what they've been requesting upon their visits. If you're looking at it from a scaling perspective, you're a much larger business, you still have this data available, and if you don't want to employ a lot of additional resources, you just plug your data into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT the questions and find out who your guests are, what they're looking for, and start there. Start offering what they're already asking for, because there's an opportunity already right there. You're not creating an opportunity, it exists. You're just capitalizing on the existing opportunity. So yes, depends on know your location, know what makes sense for your location. I remember I went with my best friend to a little town near Bordeaux, and it is a wine town, but it never occurred to us. And while we were there, we were having a wonderful stay, and our host asked us if we wanted a bottle of local wine, which we would have bought out. We would have gone outside and bought anyway, because that's kind of the point. But she was able to, since she had a connection with a local vineyard, someone like a small vineyard, and there was also, it was a more sustainable way, a greener way to do this. And we were more than happy to buy it directly from her, because we were already having a good experience at the stay. So I think that makes a difference. If your process from the very beginning has been understanding, has been anticipating their needs, then they're also more willing to what you have to offer in terms of additional services and products and upsells. We're almost over, well, we are over time now, and I think we got to all of the questions. There's one additional question from Antonello, but Antonello, you can reach out directly to Jennifer about the tablet. I'm going to share their share their website links again for everybody to take a look at, and you can connect with any of our speakers using their website, and their contact information is on their website, or find them on LinkedIn. Thank you, Francois. Thank you, Jennifer, Madison, Julia. This has been very illuminating for me, and I hope it has been illuminating for our attendees as well. You can expect, everybody who's attended or registered, you can expect an email from us tomorrow with a recording to watch at your own time, at your own pace, and also with details on how to redeem the offers everybody's extended. Thanks everybody for joining in. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.